Yes, the recording has started. Hi guys, uh, very good morning and welcome back to our last session or a final session on UiPath Basics training from Hyperautomation. And today we are going to discuss about RE framework. And guys, please go on mute for please. I request everyone to be stay on mute. And when we are open for the questions, you can talk on that time. So thanks for understanding. And today we are going to discuss about RE framework. Uh, what is actually the framework and what is template, and we are going to show you like what are our next plans. Um, yes, Rohit. Like we are going to discuss once we completed this session, what is our next plans and how we are trying to uh, build the capabilities across the UiPath technology. So without much getting delayed, so let me share my screen and then we'll start with our session. Confirm me, Sai Kiran, once you can see my screen.
Yes, we can able to see.
Perfect. And I think Pradeep joined, right?
Yes, I am here, Patil.
Also the present. Perfect. Yep. So first, let us understand the difference between what is a framework and what is a template. Okay. Framework. Framework. See, there will be a slight difference between the framework and a template. And framework is nothing but provides base for ease of implementation to programming by providing basic libraries to reduce the code. So what actually the framework is? Like framework will provide you all the base libraries which are required for your programming. Instead of writing a lengthy code, we will be having the libraries and we will just call that library and we will utilize that. We will reduce the number of lines of code by just calling a method or calling a function. So that actually we call it as a framework. And the best example for this, .NET. .NET is a framework which will be acting as your base and which will have all the basic necessary libraries in order to do the development in C# or a VB or F#, or like we have multiple programming languages where the .NET is supporting. Okay, so that actually we call it as a framework. And what is a template? Template is nothing but set of rules and standards described with basic skeleton of the programming to start with implementation. So the template will not provide you any libraries. Okay. And it will be like a base structure from where you can start your development. And you'll be already having some predefined or general or common across multiple implementations, right? Having common functionalities which may require for any project implementation. So you can just directly take this template and start your building your programming, right? Here in UiPath, we call it as what we say workflows, but in generalized word, it is a program. And examples, any project template. If you are working with any other programming languages, you'll be having some templates available. And in UiPath, we already have process, or library or a test automation. When you go to the UiPath Studio, we will see all those. So that is the basic structure, which is the basic structure which is available. We call it as a template. Now let us come back to RE framework. Is this a framework or a template? So is this a framework or a template? I want to see the answers in the chat. Framework. Okay. Is there an option to poll? Okay. Don't know how to create the poll also. Okay, fine. So we are getting the questions, mixed questions. Like majority of the people are saying that it's a framework, and we have seen very less who is calling it out as a template. And Vishwa, there is one person who is saying that like framework plus template. Okay. Okay. So we are getting mixed answers, but like majority of the people are saying like it is a framework. And now we are getting the answers like more for templates. Okay. Let us understand. Let us come back and understand. So if you ask me a question, I'll say it's a template. In my view, it's purely a template. Why? See, UiPath runs on .NET framework. Okay. And when we start with the projects, we have multiple packages installed, right? And there are system activities package or something, and there are some methods by default we will be having in UiPath, right? Some functions. So, which means all these functions, whatever we have, are part of .NET framework. But RE framework, if you exactly see the documentation, or if you clearly listen to the name, we will not call it as RE framework. We will call it as RE framework template. So we need to stress this word more, but the people will always just stop till this place and people will start saying RE framework, but it's a template. It's not a framework at all, because it is not providing you the base library. It is creating a project structure skeleton from where you can start your project and start developing. So that's the reason for which I always call it as a template. Okay, so now let us understand why do we have and what is the advantage of RE framework. Before we jump into how the RE framework works and how the structure looks like, let us understand what are the advantages of RE framework. So it creates a base structure for you to start with your project. That is the base statement for any template, irrespective whether it is an RE framework or a test automation framework, template framework, or a document understanding framework. What template, whatever might be the project, right? That is going to create a base structure for you. But what actually the advantage we have with the RE framework, right? Basic exception handling by default available. Bear with me, guys. I'm not that much good with spellings. By default available. We can focus on implementing functionalities, irrespective whether to handle all the exceptions and all, but we will be having already the exception handling available by default with the RE framework. And the second one is retrying of any failed transactions will be by default handled. But we just need to enable the retry, and we have some configurations which we need to make. Except that everything is perfect, right? And one of the important and the first one we didn't mention. These are the advantages, but we have one more very advantage. Helps to organize the code project, we can say, in better way compared to the other. Like if you go with a sequence or a flow chart, like we will be having some clumsiness, right? But here, this will organize your project in a better way. Like it will be, we will talk about like how it is going to organize and on what basis this is built. Like there will be a base for any template, right? To build a template, we need to have a base. So we will see what is that base. And the another advantage is parallel execution, or we can say multi-bot architecture. See, this is going to be a very important question, multi-bot architecture. People will ask about like, uh, did you work on multi-bot architecture? See, multi-bot architecture is nothing but like it's not a different architecture we need to build altogether. If you are implementing a project using RE framework with orchestrator queues, that is going to be your multi-bot architecture, which is nothing but executing same process by multiple robots without any duplicate processing. This will be by default available with our RE framework. These are the major advantages we have with the RE framework. So we are good with that, hoping that we are good with the advantages. And now let us understand what actually the RE framework and how it was evolved and how it was built. So in control flows or workflows, right? We have discussed about like sequence, flow chart, and state machine, or like we have discussed all those things. So we have different workflow types: sequence, flow chart, state machines, and we have test cases and all these things. But keep those aside. And these three are the basic or very basic things which we are having, right? In this RE framework template is built on top of state machines. See, the state machines is a workflow where we will be having each of the states available and we will be having a meaning to each of the states. And based on the actions we are describing, that actions will be performed on the state, and based on the output criteria or exit criteria, it will be transition will be happen to another state. Okay. And here the code workflows are project is organized with states and transition from one state to other will happen based on transition condition. Okay. And what are the different states we have? I want to see in the message. What are the different states we have in the state machines? How many states we are going to have and what are the different states? There is one answer, 3 types, 4 types, 4, 3, 4. Iterative, no, 4 states. We need get transaction, process transaction, and stuff. So guys, try to understand the question. Here, I'm not asking about how many states or what are the states we are going to have in RE framework. I'm asking in state machine. Rajendra, you are very close, but yeah, let me come back. Yes. State and final state. we have two states available in state machines. Two states in state machines. State and final state. So these are the two states we have in state machines. Only using these two, we are going to build our any templates. And here we have RE framework, which is built only using these two. And here state will have entry and exit. Whereas the final state will have only entry. There is no exit. Okay. And here in RE framework, we have four. Init, get transaction, process transaction, and end process. So only for the end process, we have final state. But the rest of the three are state. I can say okay. So here the transitions will happen based on some conditions. But first, let us understand what each state is going to do. Init is going to read all your configurations, settings, and then it will initialize all your applications and make the process ready for execution. So reads all the settings, configurations in the sense we can say assets. Okay. And open all the applications which are used as part of our process. Whatever the applications we have, it will open all the applications and it will make the applications and everything environment ready for your automation. Okay. And now get transaction. In the get transaction data, it will retrieve the data, the available data. It will retrieve the available data for processing. It can be queues, list, array, data table. So, which means any iterative object where we can loop through any object, right? We can have any of them as your transaction data, and you can get one after the other item as your transaction item. So in the get transaction state, we are going to fetch the data which is available for processing. So it's not only with the queues. With the queues, we have the advantage of multi-bot and all these architectures, very simple to implement, but we can customize our RE framework to any of the other types as well. Okay. And process transaction. In the process transaction, where we are going to implement all of our business logic, whatever the process you want to automate, that everything we are going to put that in the process transaction. All our process to be automated. And now end process. It will close all your applications and complete the process and comes out of the execution. So end process is going to close off all your applications, whatever is opened in the initializations. And these are the different states we have as part of RE framework. And let us understand the transition from one state to the other. From init, we have a transition to get transaction data. In case of successful, and there is no exception or no error in the initialization state, it will go to the get transaction data. And from init, we will go to the end process. If any error occurred, if there isn't any error, it will go to the end process. And now from the get transaction data, we have process transaction. A new transaction is available for processing. And from get transaction data, it will go to the end process. In case stop signal is received, from orchestrator, error while fetching transaction, and no new transaction data available. So in case if you could not able to receive any data, right, based on some error, it can be with the API calling to orchestrator or something. If you implemented some logic in get transaction data to modify your transaction data, if any issue occurred, and it will go to the end process, because when there is no data, there is no point of going to process transaction, even if in the same case with the if no new transaction is available. And in case if the stop signal is received, means like from orchestrator, you're asking the robot to stop your execution. And now we'll go to the process transaction. From here, it will go to the get transaction data. In successful and business error. In these two scenarios, it will go to the get transaction data in order to get the next transaction data to be utilized. And process transaction init state in case of system exception. So the reason why it is going to system exception is we know that it has got failed because of business rule exception, which means this data itself is not correct. So we doesn't want to continue with that and we doesn't want to process it again, right? For that, it will go to the get transaction data. In case of system exception, we are aware that it is because of the system or applications, whatever we have is not responding properly. So we will close all these applications and we will reinitialize all the applications and we'll continue with our process. In case if we are not closing the applications and reinitializing it, all the next transactions is going to fail. So for that reason, it will go to the init and again from init to get transaction data, again from get transaction data to process transaction. This is how this execution happens, right? And if you see here, we are navigating from init, we are navigating from get transaction data, we are navigating from process transaction, but we doesn't have any next stage transition from end process because it doesn't have any end. And what is the criteria when you want to build any new templates using state machines? You need to have at least one state and one final state. So these are the minimum criteria we have in order to build using the state machines. So this is all about RE framework. And before we will go to the UiPath Studio again, and we will see how the transitions and all. So we can select the RE framework by selecting it from it's new from templates. If you see here, right, even here also the name is given as template RE framework, and we'll just create. So here we go. In the initialization state, from initialization to get transaction data in case of successful and process in case of system exception. And in the get transaction data, if there is no data, it will go to the end process. If there is a transaction, it will come to the process transaction. And from process transaction, in case of system exception, it is going to the init. In business rule exception, it is going to get transaction data. And in successful, it is going to get transaction data. And can we add one few more transition conditions? Yes, of course. We just need to drag and drop. You can have it. And can we add more states? Yes, we can even add more states also. So I can go to this and just search with state and just simply come here and I can have it here. But see this, we got the error because we need to give the condition here. We need to give a condition. And for the time being, I'm just giving false all the time. There. And now we got this because this should have the exit as well. Not only entry, we need to have an exit also. But if you see, right, it is not giving me option to drag from here, from the end process, because it doesn't want to it will not allow you to transition from end process to the other step. And now from here, I can just keep in this way. Now it has got solved. The validation is gone. So we can keep any of the code, whatever we want to put it in this particular step. Okay. And these are the states at a very high level. And like in the initialization, it will read all the assets. Like it will check whether it is the first execution or not, which means like we have a config dictionary object where if there is no data means it is executing for the first time. In that, we will read all the assets and we will read through all the configurations or variable values, whatever we have, and we will read that. And after that, in case if there is a system exception from the process transaction state, in that case, it will directly jump in here to initialize the application. Even in the first execution or any execution, this will execute. But this reading of the data from configurations is only in the first execution. Okay. And in the, so we are assigning just system exception here. And before again, we come here, right? In the initialization state, we will again make the system exception to nothing. Like we are removing the existing exception, right? And if you see here transitions, it is going to successful. In case of successful, it is going to get transaction data. In case of system exception, it is going to end process. The get transaction data. See here, it will check whether the stop signal is received from the orchestrator or not. If it is received, then we are assigning that transaction item is nothing, which means like we doesn't have any transaction data. We are upfront telling the robot because we want to stop it. And when we are getting the transaction data, if any error occurs, it will be catched here. And here again, we are saying that there is no transaction item because we are got some error in getting the data itself, right? That's the reason for which we have no data, right? In this transition conditions, we will be saying that transaction item is nothing. And here the new transaction is available. It will go to this. And let us see what are the conditions we have. Though we are specifying that there is no data here, if we come here, right, transaction item is nothing because in case of exception or in case of the data is not available, we are assigning it to nothing. Okay. And here in the process transaction where we are going to execute all of our process. And now there is one hidden workflow in terms of states in the process transaction we are going to have, which is set transaction states. When we are executing the data, transaction data from the orchestrator piece, we need to update the status, whether it is a successful or it failed. In case of fail, what is the type of failure? Either it is a business exception or application exception, right? So that we are going to perform here. So we are having successful, business rule exception, and system exception. And here we are going to check conditions based on whether we have an exception are available or not, right? And we will increment the transaction number in order to get the next transaction. Okay. And this is the very high level structure. Let us suppose if you want to change or customize your RE framework for other than the orchestrator queues, right? What we need to do? If we come here, I will not do directly go and change. I'll just do one thing. Let us suppose my transaction data. Here we have the transaction data as a data table, but I will go with an array or list. I'll go with an array of string. So I want to customize this RE framework for transaction data. Okay, I'm just renaming this. I doesn't want to have a data table with it. And here I'll just provide names. So these are the transactions I'm giving, right? And I want to customize it for this string. So as soon as I change this to string, right, I got some validation errors. We will look into that again. And in transaction item, instead of queue item, I'll change it to string because this is my list of strings, right? So my transaction item is string. Now there is nothing to do. We just need to modify off all of our validation. Here also we have a validation. If I come here in the arguments, instead of transaction item to queue item, right, I'll change it to string. And I'll click here. I'll just put a transaction item. Now my validation is gone. So we just need to look at the validations where we are getting the validation. And now here, I doesn't want to have this set transaction status because we are not dealing with the queues. I removed it. So how do I need to get to know like wherever I have? So I'm directly coming and I'm deleting it, right? But here if we come here and I have the transaction item, right? I'll change it from queue to string. Okay. Now I got the validations again. So what I will do is I'll just remove this wherever I have the validation. In the system exception also I have validation. Where is this? Here is the validation. So wherever I have the validation, I'll just delete it. Okay. And now I'll just click on this and we are not setting at any transactions, right? So the transaction item is by default becomes nothing as you can change it to pass or it is not required. Click on OK. Still, do I have a validation? Yes, still I have validation, which means I may have in the catch blocks. Here it is. Click on OK. Here also click on OK. So all my validations are removed in the process transaction. So I do not have any validation. If I come back, there is no validation in the process, but I have a validation in the get transaction data. Let us come here. So here I have, right? Nothing will work, but what will happen is when we change the transaction item, again, we need to reassign this value. Now the validation is gone. And where do I have the next validation? I have here. So I can come here and here I have the validation. Open the workflow. And what I will do is I'll change the queue item to string. And here it is data table, right? I'll change it to array of strings. Just remove this. Now we got some validations here, but let me come back to main. Click on here. Here I'll just add the transaction data. Sorry, not here. Here it is transaction item only. Here it is going to be transaction data. Click on it. So now this validation is gone, but still I have a validation here. So which means I need to do the same thing what we have done in the previous. Nothing. So my validation is gone. If I come back to the main, there is no validation I have. What I need to do is I need to modify this. So I don't have any transaction item right here. I'm not dealing with the queues. See, if you're dealing with queues, you can by default use this. Let me delete this. And now we need to assign the transaction item. Right? But first we need to check how many items do I have and based on the transaction number. So what we can do is IO transaction data dot count is less than in underscore transaction number. Okay, which means I have 3 items, right? So till the transaction number becomes 3, I need to have, which means I can just keep less than or equal to. Transaction number 1, I'll be having the first item. Transaction number 2, I'll be having the second item. Transaction number 3, I'll be having the third item. So this is how we will be having. Let me assign this to out underscore transaction item. And here how we are going to access it. IO transaction data. And in the parenthesis, we are passing the index, right? In underscore transaction number -1, because the transaction number starts with 1 and the index starts from 0. So now we are going to get the transaction here, right? And let us come back here. Oops, I have a query here. I think I missed out to do something. I gave the wrong operator because all the times it is 3, right? So it should be in this way. Transaction number is getting incremented. So which is greater than or. So it should be in this. Only if the count is greater than the number, we want to assign the values. And just to check whether we are getting the values or not in the process transaction, what I will do is I'll just write a log message just to see whether I'm getting the name or not. This similar thing can be applied to data tables, list of mails, or list of files or anything in underscore transaction. And let us execute this process, entire process. So let me do one thing. I'll just keep it as 1 so that we will get in a different color. Keep on run. Let me come to the output. See here, transaction number 1, Patrudu, transaction number 2, Kiran, transaction number 3, Pradeep, and we doesn't have any transaction. So this is how we can customize our RE framework to work with other than the orchestrator queue items. So with this, hope we could able to end our RE framework session, and we are open for the questions if you have anything. And let me check out. Okay, I think if we are not handling queues, I think we covered this, Raghav. What happens if we kill not to stop the process job, right? See, in case if you selected the stop from orchestrator, it will complete the existing transaction. And again, before it is picking up the transaction, it will end the process. But in case if you kill, irrespective of the state, it will immediately stop your process. So here, in case if you go with the stop, you can even close your applications also. So that is the difference. There are 2 ways to make it RE framework linear. One is you can delete the get transaction data state, simple, and you can just have a counter. The best approach is what I feel is delete the get transaction data, directly assign your init to process transaction, and in the process transaction, in case of successful, go to the init, and in case of business exception or successful, you go to the end process. Yeah, quill process, if you select from the orchestrator, it will not close your applications. That transaction status, it depends, right? Here I'm taking the array, but in case if you are taking it from Excel, you can just use a write cell activity to update the status back to the orchestra Excel in the set transaction status. Right? In case of successful, you will say that like successful. In case of failure, you can just write the failure. For PDD, SDD, as of now, today we are not going, but we have a plan for that. Like we will keep you posted on that. In case of kill, we are not going to configure because the kill command from the orchestrator is completely suspending the execution itself from the robot agent. Like still similarly, how we are going to kill our applications from the task manager. Yeah, retry mechanism, see, there is nothing much in the retry mechanism. Like in case of queues, you just need to enable the auto retry and we need to give the number of queues and the RE framework will automatically handle it. If not, you have the config file. I can go to the config file. Under the setting, constants, max retry number, I can just change it from 0 to the number of retries I want to make so that the auto retry will be automatically handled in the RE framework. Majority of the cases, we are going to use the RE framework in order to build our process. But in case if you are going with any document understanding or AI center projects, there we will be using document understanding process template. If we are not using, that's what I said, right? Like we deleted the set transaction status activity, Virendra Swain. So here we will be using like how to update the status back to the source. Like if you are taking it from Excel, you'll update using the right cell. In case if you are taking it from a database, you'll write a query to update the status. Performer and dispatcher. See, performer and dispatcher is nothing much, right? A dispatcher, we just need to add the data to the orchestrator queues. And in that case, your performer is going to be your by default RE framework, and you can directly use it. See, for how to add the retry number in init state and 4 times it will go to the end process. See, in case if you want to do only in the init state, in case if issue is occurred, you have the only option of retry scope. But in case if your application exception is keep on getting that sequential, you have the configuration in the settings sheet itself. Whatever I opened right now, right? Consecutive exceptions. There is something called as consecutive exceptions. So here, if you mention 4, in case if you got 4 times continuously the system exception, then it will terminate the process. When we publish the project, it will be available under the packages in the orchestrator, and you can create the process from there. Citrix is an environment where we need to access via Citrix gateway, where you will not be able to access similar to how we are accessing through browser or desktop applications. It is something that like you will not able to capture the selectors. See, multiple files you said, right? Instead of array, you will just pass on the list of file names. It's same like whatever we have done. See, PDF automation, we doesn't have much to deal with without having the DU. That's the reason for which we skipped and we extended the session for debugging and exception handling for more time. So maybe PDF automation we are not covering. And not only in this batch, even for going further in the next training batches also, we are not including the PDF automation because read PDF file, read PDF with OCR. Those are the two activities which we will use. And we just have only two activities, right? So we are not considering the PDF automation as part of this, but the PDF automation may be good to go with the document understanding. This difference between dispatcher and performer, I think I already covered it. Like dispatcher is nothing but adding the data to the queues. Performer is nothing but implementing your process by reading the data from queues. I said, right, like PDF automation, you have only two activities, read PDF text and read PDF with OCR. Only those two activities. Where are we you passing? See, for RE framework, we are not going to pass a queue, but the queue name, we are going to keep it in here in the settings. Here you are going to do the queue name. That's it. Perfect. Yes, you can have one dispatcher and multiple performers. That's fine. That is actually we call it as a multi-bot architecture. That's fine. And data scrapping, I think we covered in early sessions itself. So hope I think guys, I think we are good. And let us hold for a while for the questions. Yes, we can have, but we need to customize it to bit more. That is fine. And just hold on, guys. Hold on for a while. And uh, let us talk about like we have a couple of other announcements also to do that. And meanwhile, I request everyone to turn on the camera so that we want to capture a picture, as because this is the last day, right? And we need to submit that to UiPath community as well. So I'm allowing the camera to everyone. So if you can just turn on the camera, everyone, we would love to take a picture. And I think we should get access to enable your cameras.
So once
One
this is
second.
done, I'll explain
Um,
the challenge of challenge
yes.
3. So we have posted in the forum
Now I
as a
think
challenge.
everyone have the access to turn on your cameras, please. Guys, okay, let us see how many we are going to have the cameras turned on. And I just changed the mode to large gallery so that I can see more people. That's it, or anyone else is of turning on the camera. And good to see you all, guys. And thanks for all your continuous dedication throughout our training sessions.
Just give us 1 minute. We'll just have a snap of the things.
One second, I could not able to see Pradeep whether he turned on the camera or not.
I turn on it. Let me return
Cannot see Pradeep.
where I am. It's fine. It's fine. I turned on it, but it's not working. I think so. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. I think can we go on and count for screenshot? 1,
Yes.
2, 3. I think we got a very nice picture. So let me share that in the chat as well.
That's fine. I think we'll just go with some sort of announcements which we thought of just giving. We'll just explain in things related to our particular challenge. We have completed till now 2 challenges, right? So we have the third challenge. We'll just go through with that particular walkthrough of the third challenge, and we'll just see what are the other things.
For that, let me share my screen so that I'll explain the challenge, what we have to do.
So meanwhile, we'll also request you to just fill out the feedback form, which will help us in just understanding to help you out, you guys, much better way. So we are just posting that. Please do complete. Please bear us with next 10 minutes so that we can just complete that particular feedback too. It's a new form. We'll just post it in the chat window. It takes only roughly 1 minute. Please to complete. Just give us a thumbs up if you are able to complete that.